Hello, Love Bay family. Welcome to the Mental Health Hour. I'm Dr. Tapo. I am here in Ontario, not so sunny anymore. The kids went back to school today, and it's like the weather just completely changed. It's a lot cooler, not as bright. So, wherever you are and you have plenty of sunshine, I envy you today. Before we go any further, just a reminder, the Mental Health Hour is for information and education only. I do not replace a qualified practitioner within your area, your locale, your community. So, whatever help you seek, and hopefully by listening to the Mental Health Hour, you will decide that you need some help. You will seek the right professional within your area. Um, you can call us, you can text us, you can email us your questions, your comments, 437-778-3299, 437-778-3299, info@lovebay@gmail.com. You can email info, love, LUVBAY @gmail.com. We've been talking the last few weeks, we've talked about suicidal ideation. Last time I started talking about what we call comorbidities, when one person is dealing with a number of serious chronic health issues at the same time, the toll that can take on their health, on even those that take care of them. We talked about as people grow older, they are more likely to experience more health issues, more health problems. We talked a little bit about what we call the sandwich generation, right? Those people in their maybe 30s, 40s, 50s who are looking after their elderly parents and still raising their children, and the toll that can take on you as a caregiver for multiple generations, including yourself, right? We never forget about self-care here on the Mental Health Hour. So on top of everybody else you're trying to take care of, you're also trying to take care of yourself. And that can be stressful, that can be challenging, that can be difficult. So we exchanged a few tips and tricks to stay on top of this demand for your time, for your resiliency, for your mental health. And so today, what I wanted us to do is, I've been doing the Mental Health Hour, I think, for about 3 years. And when we first started, we were not live streaming this way. And so there are some topics that we might have explored early on in these 3 years, and I thought it would be good to kind of go over some of that stuff again. This information never expires. It's always relevant. It's always important. You always learn something new. I know sometimes when I'm doing research for this show, I learn new things that improve my practice as a therapist, my practice as an employer, my practice in the many domains in which I engage. So I wanted us today to talk about stress, to talk about anxiety as well. Why? Because stress is kind of a precursor for a lot of people experiencing different mental health issues, mental health challenges, anxiety, depression. A lot of it starts off as stress that is not addressed when it should be, that is not immediately managed, and things get worse and worse and worse. And then we end up with some of these chronic conditions, including chronic stress. You can actually have chronic stress, and what makes chronic stress is how long you've been experiencing that stress, how badly it has impacted your life, and how likely you are to stop experiencing it. When we start talking about chronic, it means it's something that's been around for a long time, is likely to be around for a long time, and needs immediate action. Okay, so we're going to talk about stress. We're going to start going into some of the other conditions that might be exacerbated by stress, that might be triggered even by stress, that stress might bring around. Okay, so stress is one of, again, I like pointing out the words that we use in our everyday speaking and interactions without really thinking about it. So somebody says to you, hey, how are you today? And you're like, just stressed. And you're not really thinking about what you mean by that. Or, oh my goodness, this game is stressing me out. You're playing a video game and you're sitting there saying that video game that you're playing for entertainment and leisure is stressing you out. So we have just become so indifferent about stress that we're not actually paying attention when it is impacting our lives in a dangerous way. And it can actually be quite dangerous for our health. Stress is connected to heart issues, it's connected to stroke and hypertension, high blood pressure, so many things. Sometimes even our allergic reactions to the environment can come because of stress, right? So it's really important that we start to pay attention to our stress levels, the things that stress us out. I often give the example when I used to work it was in a medical setting with physicians, nurses, other healthcare practitioners. And I remember being part of a conversation with a number of nurses who didn't realize that they could spend hours without going to the bathroom. They were just holding it because they were so busy. There were so many patients, there was so much going on. They would just hold their pee, not realizing that as they're holding their pee, and it can be almost something you don't think about, right? You feel like going to the washroom, but right at that moment you can't. And automatically your brain goes into that mode where it stops you from going. And then you're holding your pee for hours at a time, not realizing that that's adding one thing to your brain on top of everything else. You're seeing the patients, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're giving patients sometimes really bad news. And while doing all this, your brain is also reminding you to hold your pee, to not relieve yourself in public. That is stressing the brain out without even realizing it. And what they realized was if they need to pee and they immediately go to the washroom, they don't feel as stressed, right? So there are certain things we do without realizing how much they add to our daily stress. And we need to pay attention to those things. Sometimes, for me personally, I've realized when I'm trying to figure something out and I have the TV on, maybe in the background, or music in the background, or it really can stress me out because my mind is being pulled in so many directions. I live a little bit close to like a major turn off on a highway, right? So there's always traffic, sometimes people on their motorcycles and all of that. So when I have the door open, there's music in the background, there's noise from the road. I'm trying to do some things, and my mind is just, there's just so much going on. I It stresses me out. I can't think straight. So I shut the door, I turn off, if it's the radio, the TV, or whatever it is, I shut all those things off and I just focus on what I'm trying to think about. And I find that I can problem solve a lot quicker. We don't actually notice how much noise is around us. And this noise we might not be paying attention to it, but your brain is not turned off. It's not switched off. For your brain, it's still registering. It's still hitting those nerves that respond to sound, that respond to certain stimuli in your environment, and all of these things are happening at once, but we're not paying attention. And so it increases our stress levels and we don't even realize it. One thing I noticed about myself as well, and I'm one of those people, I love to listen to music when I'm driving, but something I noticed is when I am listening to music and I'm in high traffic with lots of turns and I'm trying to listen to my GPS as well, my brain can get overwhelmed by all the things that I need to do. So I've actually taken to, if I'm in an unfamiliar space, I haven't been here before, or it's high traffic, I'm not simply driving on the highway, there's lots of turns and all of that. Even in neighborhoods where I need to slow down to watch for pedestrians and all of that, I turn off my music so I can focus more on my driving. It took me a while to realize that, yes, I'm enjoying the music, and music can be very relaxing in the right atmosphere, in the right context. Music can help you relax, it can help you slow down. But in some instances, it becomes noise, it becomes a distraction, and you need to just kind of reduce the noise that your brain has to respond to. Sometimes I teach in colleges and universities, and most recently I was teaching psychology one-on-one. And one of the things I was teaching about is what we lay people would call subliminal messaging, which is if you did psychology or studied psychology, your first year of psychology, you would have learned about some of the experiments in early psychology. And one of these was in a movie theater. They wanted people to buy more popcorn. So they would flash the word popcorn or pictures of popcorn really fast. So you're sitting there, you're looking at the big screen, you don't see the picture because it's a really quick, like very, very quick, but it registers in the mind anyway. So what we're paying attention to is not at the same level as what is stimulating our brains. There are certain things we don't even notice, but our brain has already been stimulated by that thing and it is processing it and it is trying to find. So that's why I'm saying sometimes we take for granted how much noise is around us, but our brain does not. Because our conscious level and the level at which the brain operates are not the same. So when we talk about mindfulness, for example, it's trying to train our consciousness to be at the same level as our brain. And through mindful practice, you can kind of train your brain and your mind or your consciousness to work at more or less the same level. But there are certain things your eye will see and it hasn't registered to you consciously, but your eye has seen it and your brain is processing it. And so stress can feel like it's coming out of nowhere. Why am I feeling so stressed? Sometimes with some of my clients, they talk about feeling agitated and they don't even know why. But the brain is responding to some kind of stimuli, right? So we need to pay attention to our stress level. So stress and anxiety, people can confuse those two things, but they're not the same. Today, we're focusing on stress. If we have time, we'll go into anxiety, but I really, really want us to understand stress before we go into anxiety. And then we'll in later mental health hour sessions, we'll look at depression and other mental health disorders that are related to stress. So stress is when you go to your doctor, and I always say this, if you've been feeling stressed for 2 weeks or more, go to the doctor. A lot of us don't think that stress is something to go to the doctor, but it is. It definitely is. Why? Because, like I said, your brain is responding to so many things that you might not even know. Even at a physical level, you might actually have something wrong with you that you have not registered yet. But because the whole brain and the nervous system, they're all connected to every part of your body, your brain might actually be reacting to something happening in your body and you're not aware of it. And so your brain is maybe trying to overcompensate, your nervous system is trying to overcompensate, and you don't understand, why am I always feeling tired? These days I'm very irritable. Something's wrong. It might take you a while to realize that, oh, but if you've been feeling stressed for a while, and we're going to go through like the physical symptoms, some of those mental symptoms of stress as well, because it's really, really important for us to be aware of our stress levels. So stress feels like pressure. That is the most basic and simplistic way to describe stress. It's pressure. And that's why I said sometimes I'm trying to focus on doing one thing. There's music in the background. I'm listening to the traffic outside. Maybe there's other things going on in my where I live. Sometimes when the AC kicks off, it makes a sound. So that's something else. And everything happening, your nervous system, your brain is responding to all those things. And all you're focusing on, like maybe let's say you're writing a paper, let's say you're a student, you're writing an essay, you're trying to get this thing done. And because your focus is on that, you don't realize how many other things your brain and your nervous system have to be dealing with. But it starts to feel like pressure. And when we start talking about stress, and why I said within 2 weeks, if you constantly feel under pressure, go and see your doctor. Go and see your doctor. They'll do some tests. They'll make sure, like on a physical level, you're fine. I don't know, I'm not a physician, but your blood pressure is okay, and all of that. Ask your physician the next time you go see them to just kind of look you over. Because the other thing that stress does is the longer you carry it around, the more, like I said, it wears down your body. You've heard of people with things like chronic fatigue syndrome, which means you feel tired and just kind of listless and restless for long periods of time. And you can't exactly say it's because of A, B, C, and D, but you just feel lethargic all the time. You feel like even emotionally, you feel raw all the time. That could be stress that has just been lingering for too long because you have not addressed it. So stress feels like pressure. And the more it mounts up, the more you feel unstable. Sometimes, and I've heard this, and there was a time in my life when I thought it was good for me. Oh, the pressure, the stress motivates me. It helps me get things done. And so we procrastinate. We wait until the very last minute because we're counting on that pressure to push us and move us and get us to do things. if that is you, who likes to put yourself under pressure to get things done, I suggest you learn other ways of getting motivated, of being productive, of staying on task and getting things done. Because stress is not something you should be cultivating in your life. It's something you should actually be reducing. Why? Because it's normal in life to be stressed. It is absolutely normal, but it should not be stress that is allowed to go on too long. Thinking about today, it's back to school here in Ontario, probably in all of Canada, I'm not sure, but it's back to school. So let's say you're a parent, you have 2 or 3 children, you did your back to school shopping, you want to make sure all their socks have no holes, they have the right size shoes, if they wear uniforms, that's sorted, if they don't, that their clothes that they were wearing to school last year still fit, and all of that. There's a lot to get sorted, to get done in a short period of time. So life brings you things that will naturally increase that pressure. So you yourself should not be doing things carelessly, deliberately, for whatever reason, to also increase the pressure on yourself or other people. Make it a daily practice to remove stressful situations and things from your life. Time management, careful planning, constructive communication, that you're communicating. If you work in a team at work, that you're communicating things on time, so you're eliminating stressors. Don't be adding stressors to yourself or other people, because that has very real consequences on your health, on your relationships, on your emotions, on so many levels. Stress has very real consequences. So we like to stress ourselves because of the adrenaline, right? It gets the heart pumping, gets us motivated. Don't do that. Do not do that. If you like adrenaline, jump on your treadmill, go run outside, join a team sport, do something else that is actually healthy for your body, because stress is not. One of the things medically that they'll tell you is that stress produces a hormone called cortisol, if I'm not mistaken. And this hormone is associated with heart disease, with high cholesterol, with hypertension, and people that have high levels of stress tend to have big tummies. So you can see stress is not good for you at all. If you like adrenaline, go work out, go exercise, go do a sport, go do something that is good for your body. Stress is not. So a lot of people who have high levels, consistently high levels of stress, end up with life-threatening chronic conditions, including obesity as well. Because some people, when you're really stressed out, the first thing you do is grab the nearest bag of chips, chocolate, you drink too much, whether it's wine or beer, whatever it is. Stress has very real consequences in so many ways, on so many levels. So it produces these hormones like cortisol, hormones that cause depression, hormones that increase blood pressure, hormones that lead to other negative changes and health conditions in your body, including that big stomach. So you might try and work out, but one of the things you need to do is, and we've talked before about the importance of sleep. You need to sleep enough, restfully. You need to exercise and eat healthy, and you need to eliminate as many stressors as you possibly can from your life. We can't eliminate all of them, that's life. But if you can eliminate one or two on a daily basis, like actually sit down and think, what do I have to do today? Prioritize. Not everything needs to be done in one day. If that will increase your stress, then you're not managing your time well, you're not planning your day well, and you're putting yourself at a huge, huge disadvantage and increasing the risk of certain illnesses and conditions, including anxiety and depression. So, stress can cause, and this is especially chronic stress, when you've been stressed for a long period of time, you're more likely to become clinically depressed. You're more likely to develop anxiety because of that stress. Okay, so some symptoms of stress: high levels of anxiety. So you can feel anxious and talk about anxiety without necessarily having an anxiety disorder. So, one of the symptoms of high levels of stress, chronic stress, persistent stress, is anxiety. Not anxiety disorder, but that feeling, that emotion of anxiety, feeling agitated, right? Feeling agitated, anxious, feeling restless, fidgety, even irritable, easily annoyed, short tempered. These are all signs of high levels of stress. Chest pains on a physical level. You might experience chest pains. You might experience dizziness, shortness of breath. You can even start having panic attacks because things are piling up, piling up, piling up. Your brain, on a very biological, physical level, is burnt out and tired, but there's more and more stressors coming up. So you can actually feel quite unhinged, unstable, irritable, confusion, low memory. Today, I had a conversation with one of the people I work with, and she tried to take some vacation time over the summer, but we were so busy, and she kept popping in and out. And so she was saying to me, I realized I actually didn't take vacation like I should have. And I've become more forgetful. I'm easily confused. Even the simplest tasks feel a lot more difficult, not because she's not capable, she's a very capable person, but because of high stress levels. So it's not admirable if you're on vacation and you're still connecting with people at work, reminding them of this, sending them a quick text on that. If you're on vacation, take your vacation, turn your work phone off, your work email is off, everything work related is off, and just focus on rest, relaxation, community, family, those things that reduce the stress levels. So when you do go back to work, you are actually refreshed. So, common physical symptoms of stress: stomach aches. And this is more common, especially in children. And yes, the sad thing is, little children get stressed too. I have seen it in small children. They become uh, very irritable as well, have frequent meltdowns. They start to withdraw. They're not sleeping well. if you're seeing some changes in your child's behavior, it could even be your toddler, it could be a child who's 10, 11, it could be your teenager. Ask them about stress in a way that they understand. For little kids, sometimes, especially it's back to school, right? Maybe this child has never been to school before and they keep thinking about it. They're a little bit nervous. Not every child can't wait to enter the big wide world. Sometimes kids have been going to school and they have not had a good experience, and now going back to school, they're feeling stressed out. Sometimes they're in a new class, new teacher, new people, might even be in a new school, and so many new things. Your child also can get stressed. And so part of our role as parents is to check in with our children and their stress level. Stomach aches that you can't quite figure out, why does my child have a stomach ache? It could be stress, it could also be anxiety, it could also be depression or some other psychological condition. But start with stress. Kids get stressed too. Kids get stressed too. And sometimes, sadly, some of what stresses kids are very adult problems. If your child, and I'm not saying hide things or lie to your kids about your family's situation, but kids worry if they know that we don't have a lot of money and things are happening, and last time our electricity got cut off. Kids can worry about those things too. And often with kids, they're worrying about that and about their parents. They feel helpless because they're just a child. They can't solve this situation for you. And so their little minds and bodies get stressed as well. So I'm not saying hide things or lie about things to your children. What I'm saying is help them monitor their stress, helps them de-stress. And I've talked before about self-care, making self-care a family affair. We've had parents writing about I self-care by doing this, I self-care by doing that, your bubble baths, your day at the golf club, blah, blah, blah. How are you teaching your kids self-care? What rituals of self-care have you taught your kids? Right? So some of these things that you do for yourself as an adult, don't take it for granted that because your little man or little woman is only 4 years old or 6 years old or 12, they don't have stress or they don't need self. They need all of those things, and model as well as demonstrate and teach kids to self-care, to be able to say, you know what, I've had a long day at school. Junior K or nursery school or Montessori or whatever is not a walk in the park. When I come home from Montessori, from Junior K, from kindergarten or whatever, I need to just take some space for myself, relax, maybe take a nap, do something to just kind of distress me. But sometimes what happens is as soon as they get home, it's activity, activity, activity. Here in North America, one thing I've realized is parents love signing their kids up for things. You have kids that are going out driving long distances for basketball, football, different sports. They're playing very competitively. And so that can be stressful as well. Am I saying kids shouldn't do that? No. What I'm saying is teach your kids self-care. Little kids these days, you go back to work after parental leave, that means they're going somewhere as well. So your job, you start work at 9:30, you're waking up a 1-year-old, 1.5-year-old, they're getting dressed to go to daycare. They're getting dressed to go to grandma's or whoever looks after them while you're at work. So the lifestyles we lead these days do not exactly translate to stress-free for children, because we need two-income households these days. It is what it is. That's the reality. Both parents need to work in a lot of households. That's what it is. And you decided to have children. God bless you. But our lifestyles stress out children. And so we need to teach kids self-care and help them as well learn how to de-stress, learn how to identify stressors, learn how to identify indicators in their bodies of stress, right? So we're also seeing higher rates of anxiety in children, higher rates of depression in children. So yeah, like I said, stress can lead to these conditions, and we don't pay attention to a child's stress levels. Before long, they've been stressed for a long time, and sometimes kids cannot articulate to you that I'm having a hard time at school. Maybe they're being bullied. Maybe they are the bully. We should not assume because a child is a bully, they're not stressed. Some children are bullies because they're stressed. And so your child experiences these long periods of stress. Before long, they've developed anxiety, and that becomes a lifelong condition. So it's really, really important as grown-ups, as adults, we need to learn how to take care of ourselves, to de-stress, to monitor our health, our stress levels, and we need to teach the children in our care to do the same. Massage your little baby when they seem stressed out, agitated, restless. Give them a massage. You'll find that they might relax. And that might be an indication to you that there's something in the environment that is stressing them out. And because they can't yet talk and articulate, you don't know what it is, right? Massage your little 4-year-old, your 6-year-old, sit them down, give them a foot rub, and talk to them about their day at school. You're teaching them this is relaxation. This is how to be relaxed feels. And this is how to be stressed feels. And this is how to be tired and cranky feels. You're teaching them to be able to identify and articulate different emotions, so that they're not just experiencing things they can't even explain, they can't even express, and it's just happening to their little bodies and minds, and they're overwhelmed and they're stressed. So teach them these things. This is relaxation. Give them a massage, play some quiet music and say, like, let's just lie down and relax. Can you feel your toes? Can you feel your fingers? Like, talk them through it so they learn, oh, this is stress. Oh, now I feel good because I did this, because I lay down on the bed, I listened to the music, I now feel differently. You're teaching them how to de-stress, but also how to identify high stress levels in themselves. So stomach aches. So sometimes, like I said, if you can't identify any food, anything else that could be causing the stomach ache, it could be stress. Muscle tension. Sometimes you don't realize your jaw is clenched or your whole body is tense. So it's a good practice, maybe when you come home from work, before you start making dinner and doing this and doing that, 5 minutes, sit down, 5 minutes, your feet firmly on the floor, and just start feeling your body. Start feeling your body. Am I stressed? Am I relaxed? What am I feeling in my body right now? Just do that quick inventory, 5 minutes. It makes a huge difference. Some people have chronic headaches because of stress. You're suffering migraines, you're suffering Headaches, especially at the back of your neck, that could be stress. Rapid breathing. You feel like you're running out of breath. I run out of breath from talking so much on Mental Health Hour. Like talking for an hour is not easy. I tend to run out of breath just from talking. I am actually better on a treadmill than I am talking. But rapid breathing, fast heartbeat, and you can't identify any other reasons why. It could be stress. Sweating. You might be sweating on your upper lip. It might just be a sheen on your brow. It could be in the small of your back, just certain parts of the body where you're sweating and you can't see, it's not hot, you haven't been exercising or exerting yourself. There's no other reason why you should be sweating. It might be stress. Remember what I said, the nervous system is responding to stimuli in the environment all the time that you might not be on a conscious level paying attention to, but your brain and your nervous system is. So you start sweating, rapid heart beat, rapid breathing. It could be that your brain and your nervous system is responding to things you are not aware of, including stress. Shaking, especially the longer you're stressed over long periods of time, you're now in that region of chronic stress. You could become shaky. You find your hands are not as steady anymore. You're a lot more clumsy. You're dropping stuff. You're bumping into things. You're constantly distracted and you just feel shaky. Dizziness, like I mentioned before, and this could be connected to some of that sweating, which can lead to dehydration that you're not paying attention to. So a lot of these symptoms, a lot of them, if you don't take the time to actually stop and listen to your body, make that a daily practice. I've said before, in the morning, before you jump out of bed, even before you pick up your phone, if you're like me, it's such a bad habit that I'm really trying to address. As soon as you wake up, you start feeling around, where did I? And before you know it, you're on your phone. Before you do that, first thing in the morning when you wake up, before you turn on your phone, before you jump out of bed, before anything, just take a moment and assess the quality of sleep you just had. Do I feel rested? Do I feel rested? Did I sleep well? How does my body feel? Sometimes this is how you can identify if you have the right pillows, the right mattress. Sometimes you don't even notice that every morning you're waking up with back pain because of how you're sleeping. But because you just jump out of bed or you get on your phone, and we tend to ignore the messages our bodies give us because there's just so much stimuli in the outside world. You don't realize that every morning you're waking up with back pain. You don't realize that every morning you're not actually feeling rested before you jump up. So take a moment before you jump out of bed to just kind of assess, am I feeling rested? Was that good sleep or not? And I've advised, if especially, and last time I said this, if you have chronic health issues, if you have multiple health issues, keep a diary. Keep a diary. You wake up in the morning, assess, do I feel rested? Did I sleep well? How many hours of sleep did I get? I went to bed at about 10 o'clock. how long did it take me to fall asleep? And now it's like 5 a.m. So that means I had 7 hours sleep. Was that sufficient? Do I need more? Am I sleeping more than I used to? All of these things. If you don't take that moment before you get busy with everything, including your phone, some of us wake up and immediately start scrolling social media, and you're listening to this joke and that woman yelling and that man yelling, and through your social media, you haven't been awake 5 minutes and you've already got so much noise. It impacts your health, it impacts your stress levels. And you don't realize this because you're actually not stopping to assess, did I rest? How am I feeling? Is there tension anywhere in my body? At the back of my neck, in your jaw, in the small of your back? That's where we usually hold the most tension. And you need to assess these things in your shoulders as well. Like, where do you feel the most tension? If there's any pain, start paying attention. Oh, yesterday I had the same pain. 3 days later, you have the same pain. Because you're paying attention, sometimes it feels like we're suddenly in a lot of pain. But it actually started as just a minor thing 3 weeks ago, which we ignored and didn't even realize. And slowly it's been building up until one day you can't even get out of bed because you're not taking the time to listen to your body. And the number one thing to do if you're struggling with stress is learn to listen to your body. Your body is giving you messages all the time. And if you don't listen, you're going to end up trying to explain to your doctor exactly what's been happening and for how long. And you can't even answer those questions because you did not pay attention to yourself. Self care is not sitting in a tub with bubble bath and champagne. It starts with listening to your body. How am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? Has this been going on for a while? What could be causing this? Pay attention. Frequent urination is another indication of high stress levels, and we don't often make this connection. But think about it. If it's impacting your nervous system, you are likely to want to urinate a lot more. I know for myself, when I'm nervous, I feel like I need to urinate, but I actually don't. It's just nerves. That's how my nervousness presents. When I'm nervous, I feel like I need the washroom, and I actually don't. Change in appetite, you're eating way too much or not enough. You lose your appetite, or your appetite increases, and it's not usually for good food. And when I say good food, I mean healthy food. So your appetite might change. You're eating a lot more or you're eating a lot less. Either way, those things can impact your health. You want to make sure you're having balanced meals, plenty of fruit and vegetables, plenty of protein. We need that protein because that feeds our muscle. You need your fiber as well. So, plenty of fruit and vegetables. Make sure you're constantly hydrating. We sometimes don't notice how much we sweat because we only pay attention to the kind of sweat that makes our clothes wet. But think about it, we are sweating almost all the time, just not as profusely as we pay attention to. So stay hydrated throughout the day. You're drinking plenty of water because, like I said, sometimes it's the fact that your body has to function on less Your body has to overcompensate because you're dehydrated, because you haven't eaten. I unfortunately have that really bad habit. I can forget to eat until my stomach is actually hurting. Then I realize, oh my goodness, I didn't eat anything today. And so, one of the things I try and pay attention to is making sure I have prepared something for breakfast the night before. Because if I don't do that, I will wake up and go to work and get busy. And before I know it, it's 5 p.m. and I didn't eat anything at all. And now my body is in that compensatory mode because I didn't feed it. And sometimes that includes liquids. I can actually forget to drink water, and that's not healthy. So I'm really working on being more mindful about having regular meals, about staying hydrated. So, what are you lacking and not giving your body to make sure that it is functioning at optimum levels? We have a lot of external stimuli and stressors. Don't make your body have to work overtime because you're not feeding it enough, you're not resting it enough, you're not hydrating it enough, you're not taking care of it enough. Okay? Trouble sleeping, so insomnia can be an indication of high stress levels. You're not getting to bed on time, you're taking hours to sleep because your brain is constantly, and so you're having trouble sleeping, or you're waking up and not feeling rested at all. We also have diarrhea, similar to urination, that can impact. Stress can impact your digestive system as well. So you might, some people get constipated, some people have diarrhea. We don't all react the same. There are some common symptoms, which is what I'm presenting to you now. They're common, as in most people will present with some of these symptoms. But we also have some that are very unique to us based on our cultures, our diets, what are our staple foods. That has a lot to do with it as well. And then fatigue, that feeling of just being constantly tired, constantly exhausted. Like I said, you might start being more forgetful, more confused. Simple tasks just seem a lot more difficult. You don't have the energy to exercise anymore. So that part of your life starts to suffer. You don't have the energy to play with your kids, to play with your dog, things that you used to enjoy. You're not finding that joy anymore because you're tired all the time. That could be because of stress. So it's really important that you do that inventory regularly. Every morning before you jump out of bed, before you grab your phone and go on social media, how am I feeling? Is there any pain in my body? When you first step out of the bed and you plant your feet firmly on the floor, again, how does my body feel? Stretch your back, do a few stretches here and there, and then get started on your day. Okay? So, what does long-term stress do? What does long-term stress do? So, like I mentioned, it can increase, excuse me, it can increase the production of certain hormones in our bodies, like the cortisol, hormones that can lead to depression and other chronic conditions. So it can increase certain hormones, it can reduce hormonal functioning as well. So where our bodies should be functioning, the hormones should be functioning at a certain level, it's now all over the place, or it's depleted, or it's too much. Simply put, your hormones stop functioning like they should. And once that starts happening, because remember, hormones, psychology 101, hormones are part of the nervous system. They're part of the way your brain functions, the way your whole body is regulated. So long term stress can impact that. And that's why you might end up with hypertension, heart disease, stroke. You might end up with, like I mentioned, the cortisol has been shown. People that tend to have a bigger middle, your stomach seems to just be growing big and you're wondering what's going on. It might be due to stress. Okay. Um, it damages your body organs, your kidneys, your livers, your heart, your lungs. All of that can be impacted. Imagine you're constantly rapidly breathing, or your heartbeat is constantly fast or out of kilter because of stress. It's going to damage those organs. Also, because the hormones that help those organs function properly, your hormones are out of whack. Do you think your body organs won't be? Definitely, that will be impacted. It weakens your immune system. So you're constantly getting colds, constantly getting sick, constantly feeling unwell. That could be because of stress impacting your body, long term stress. Like I said earlier, it puts you at risk, a greater risk for chronic illnesses. So you want to make sure that you're addressing stress in your life. Memory loss, concentration issues, all of these things, and you might develop mental health disorders. So these are the things that stress can do to us human beings, and why it's really important that we monitor our stress levels, that we address stressors as soon as possible. You realize that this thing is not good for me, cut it out. We talk a lot about cancel culture, and I'm really not for it. But there are some people in our lives that are really not good for our stress level. Does that mean cancel them? Not necessarily. It might be that you need to set some clear boundaries to protect yourself and that relationship. It doesn't mean, like, it could be your spouse. Yeah, maybe your spouse stresses you out. Maybe you stress out your spouse. So you might need to sit down and talk about your stress levels as a couple. How do we protect each other from chronic stress, from chronic illnesses, from chronic mental health situations, from chronic fatigue? Let's sit down. What are the things that we stress each other? Our kids stress us out, our parents and in laws, all of these things. Sit down, take inventory as a couple, as a family. What are our stressors? What are the things that are stressing us out? How do we address those things? How do we make sure that these do not continue to impact us in this negative way? You don't go and divorce your spouse. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is sit down as a couple and figure out your stressors. And especially if you're finding you're arguing a lot, all of these things, it could be your stress levels. That could be where to start. Okay, so I'm looking at the time and we've run out of time. I hope that you've really taken some notes and you'll take some of this advice and start monitoring yourself. But also just go to the doctor. If you've not had a physical in the last 6 months, it's a good idea to do that. Preventative care is always, always better than trying to look for a cure, right? Okay, so please get in touch. 437-778-3299. Text us, call us, email us, infolovebay@gmail.com. Send your questions, send your comments, share some of your experiences, what things have been stressing you out, How have you addressed them? Take care of yourself this week. Challenge yourself before the end of this week. You're going to do something for self-care. And every morning and every evening, set a timer on your phone. Start with 1 minute, 2 minutes, build it up every week to just check in on yourself, to be still, listen to your body, listen to what your body is telling you about your health, about your lifestyle, pay attention and make the necessary changes to live healthier and happier with your spouse, with your partner, with your children, with your community. Good night and have a wonderful month of September.